Orochimaru. But despite Luffy's obliviousness, Holetum is convinced that his theory is correct. Kiku advises Luffy not to antagonize the Shinichi, as the beast pirates practically hold the entire town hostage. If a revolution were to break out, Jack, who has likely survived the attack from Zunisha in the past, would come to claim his revenge. This knowledge only irritates Luffy more so. With Tama's life at his mercy, Holetum carries on provoking Luffy, while a treasure ship full of food enters the block, overseen by Speed and her guards. It is the harvest from Paradise Farm. The mountainous stock of food charms Luffy's appetite, but he is soon reminded the young Tama's struggles with starvation, and his rage continues to swell. Luffy appoints Zoro to handle the massive cargo ship to Kiku's fusion, as the two begin loosening the shoulders. Hawkins and his men ride into town, but are halted by a lone sword-wielding man hiding his face behind a basket. The man is secretly Law. Back at the center of town, Holetum authorizes his men to attack Luffy and his allies, once again reminding them that Tama's life is at stake. Regardless, Zoro effortlessly sends a number of his samurai flying. Holetum berates him, intending to follow through on his word, as he gives Kamijiro permission to chew the girl up. Suddenly, Luffy bounces up to reach them, strikes Kamajiro's nose, and grabs hold of Tama, all before the lion is even able to bite down. Holetum is astonished by Luffy's quickness, while Tama delights in her rescue. At the same time, Zoro is plowing through Speed's forces, protecting the golden ship. Preparing to counterattack, Holetum lights up his sword with Kamajiro's fire breath, and unfastens the blade into many links, bearing a longer-ranged weapon, similar to a whip. He boasts about his powerful trick mechanism sword, and swings it in Luffy's direction. Meanwhile, Kiku is taken hostage by a large pirate. Zoro, caught up in fighting, invites Kiku to drop her delicate facade and put her swordplay to work. Kiku finally concedes, frees herself, battle to hijack Speed's treasure ship. On the rooftops, Luffy is weaving around Holetum, Tama's wounded cheek from Holetum's persecution. He then reels his fist back an excessive distance and lands a smoldering Red Hawk attack, knocking him out and off the roof. Tama is dazzled, recognizing the parallels between Luffy and his renowned brother. Luffy defeats Holetum, sending him crashing to the ground, then takes Tama and flees. Zoro, Kiku, and Komichio also flee on Speed's food cart. Speed sends soldiers to chase after them. Luffy gets cornered by angry citizens, but easily defeats them. He hops onto Speed's back, mistaking her for a real horse. Although Speed is hostile to Luffy, Tama uses her Devil Fruit ability, creates a mochi, and feeds it to Speed, taming her. Speed immediately begins following Tama's commands, running away and helping them escape. Luffy finds Zoro's cart and hops on, but leaves to deal with the most important thing. Meanwhile, Law confronts Hawkins in the street, disguised with a gladiator helmet. Law declares a battle, and Hawkins immediately recognizes Law based on his room move and hand tattoos. Law attacks Hawkins, but Hawkins redirects the damage to other subordinates. Law fiercely fights against Hawkins. However, Hawkins receives a call saying that Luffy had defeated Holetum and Jack has been notified. Then Zoro's food cart arrives and Law hops on. Law berates Zoro for viciously provoking a fight with Kaido's men. Zoro largely ignores Law, berating him for Luffy's actions. Komichio continues carrying the ship of food with Zoro and Law on it. Beast's pirates chase after them. Luffy also steals a giant tub of water meant as a tribute to Orochi, then runs away. Komichio rides the ship of food back to Okobor town, feeding its starving citizens. However, they are confronted by Rabbitman, Batman, and Snakeman, who are angry that they are eating their stolen food. However, Luffy arrives and crushes them with the giant tub of water. The citizens cheer, happy to be saved from their starvation. However, Law warns that Luffy's actions are an act of rebellion against Wano country. Luffy ignores this warning, giving Tama an apple as a thanks for feeding him earlier. Back at Bakura town, the fire in Holetum's house continues to spread while Holetum remains unconscious. However, the lion wakes up. Also, Hawkins informs his higher-ups about Luffy, Zoro, and Law. The citizens of Okobor town take the food in the treasure ship, then take the ship apart for building material. Luffy's actions remind Tama of Ace. Ace promised Tama to help ease the country's hunger. Tama says her final goodbyes to Luffy before riding back home on Speed. Luffy's group also leaves to climb a mountain and find the ruins of Odin's castle. Kiku gets suspicious of them because they plan to visit Odin's castle. Law explains, at the top of the mountain there are graves marked for Kanjuro, Raizo, Momonosuke, Kinemon, and Odin. An eavesdropping old man is highly disturbed by the classroom's teachings. In a different location, Robin, as Law leads the way, he directs Luffy towards a cluster of 9 distinct grave posts. They've now arrived just in time to reassemble with Luffy and the samurai. There, Kinemon admits to his comrades that he has one last secret yet to tell them, but he fears it would be too unbelievable. Luffy implores Kinemon to tell them everything, and Kinemon proclaims that he, Kiku, Momonosuke, Luffy and his friends are rattled after Kinemon informs them that he and his fellow samurai have traveled across time from Wano, 2 decades in the past. Kinemon enlightens them and begins recounting the history of the kingdom, as well as Momonosuke's father, Kozuki Oden. Many years ago, the flower capital was ruled by Kozuki Sukiyaki. Oden was an unruly ronin who was banished from the city for his violent inclinations. Free to roam wherever he chose, Oden happened upon at the lawless region of Wano, a valley notorious for its brutality and desecration day in and day out. The young Oden appeared on the scene, cutting down the mass of bandits and other troublemakers swarming the village. He sought to challenge the criminal's boss, Ashura Doji, to a duel. After coming out on top, the horde of bandits then recognized Oden as their new leader. Oden then put his underlings to work, rebuilding the village, farming crops, bridging communities, and bringing new life to the region that would become the present-day Bakura town. By Sukiyaki's appointment, Oden became the daimyo of Kuri, despite his disorderly behavior. Meanwhile, Inuarashi is reminiscing about Oden as well, recalling a time when his younger self, along with Nekomamushi, were castaways on the shore of Kuri. Oden rescued Doduo from persecution at hands of the locals, under his wing. Inuarashi weeps for his master's outgoing kindness, acclaiming that Oden's heroism was respected by Whitebeard himself, and even Goldie Roger. Zoro emerges victorious over his battle with the giant tiger, when a nearby fishing pier grabs his attention. As the samurai lament memories of their lost master, the Straw Hat Pirates are brimming with anger aimed at the beast's pirates and the scheming. On the night the mutiny had taken place 20 years prior, Oden fought to his last breath before he ultimately fell to his executioners. Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo, Kiku, Inuarashi, and Nekomamushi fled from the site of their execution and headed for Oden's castle in order to save Oden's children and his wife, Kazuki Toki. The 2 minks were tragically apprehended, but the samurai had no time to look back. They approached the scorching castle, slashing through the monstrous assailants. Oden's castle was on the brink of collapse, but the 4 samurai arrived to find Toki, Momonosuke, and his sister alive, trapped by the fire. To his shock, Toki declined Kinemon's attempt to help her escape. She commanded the 4 to make off with Momonosuke and leave to the future. Without much time to explain, Toki claimed to possess the powers of the Toki Toki no Mi, and that she had the ability to send them forward in time. She had used this power on herself many times before, but decided that she must surrender herself to fate then and there. Though Kinemon did not fully understand, he pledged that he and the other samurai would avenge the Kazuki family and restore justice to the Wano Oden worked tirelessly to forge. Momonosuke cries out for his mother, and without admonition, he and the 4 samurai appear above the castle's torched remains in abrupt daylight. Witnessing the sight of their own graves and discovering the massive industrialization of the country they once knew, Kinemon and the others came to terms with the fact that they have indeed traveled into the future. They were made unpleasantly aware of the kingdom's sorry state and how Oden's legacy had been slandered with hateful propaganda. Amidst all this regrettable change, however, Kinemon found that there was a collection of citizens who remained loyal to Oden and offered themselves to help defend the Kazuki family's honor. Kinemon continues telling the story of the past. Now that Kaido had taken over Wano country, he decided to recruit allies to fight for them. Raizo, Kanjuro, and Momonosuke escaped the country to Zu in search of more allies. However, one by one, they accidentally got separated in Zu, Dressrosa, and Punk Hazard. Kinemon explains that to take down Kaido and Orochi, the Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance will carry out a raid on Onigashima during the country's fire festival. The Straw Hats who arrived at Wano country earlier have previously been assigned a task to prepare for the raid. Zoro and Usopp recruit allies by handing out encrypted flyers. Robin disguises as a geisha to learn about Orochi's plans, and Frankie works as a construction worker to find the blueprints for Kaido's mansion. The other Straw Hats are also assigned a task. Brook will carry food into the capital, Nami will pose as a kunoichi for espionage operations, Sanji will pose as a soba chef to attract allies, and Carrot, Chopper, and Kiku will meet up with Inuarashi. Kinemon uses his devil fruit powers to create costumes for them, and also introduces a new ally, Shinobu, another kunoichi. Kinemon continues telling his plan. Kinemon continues revealing his plan for the upcoming raid on Onigashima. Sanji notices that Ashura Doji is among the allies Kinemon wants to track down, but is also one of Oden's enemies that were defeated. Kinemon explains that Doji changed his ways and became a servant of the Kazuki family, but recently returned to being a criminal under the name Shutenmaru. He explains that Shutenmaru is one of his strongest potential allies. Meanwhile, Shutenmaru is in the streets of Okobore town, robbing people who just received food from Luffy. However, he is encountered by Jack of the Beast's pirates, and they quickly engage in duel. Shutenmaru manages to critically wound Jack. In Onigashima, Kaido goes on a drunken rant about Luffy, attacking his subordinates and smashing another flask. Eventually, using his devil fruit power, he transforms into a terrifying azure dragon and flies to Kuri. In Okobore town, stormy clouds fill the sky, and the citizens immediately recognize, to their shock, that Kaido has decided to appear in person. Jack and Shutenmaru notice, and so do the Straw Hats, who are hidden away at the Heart Pirate's tent. Kaido commands Jack to lead him to Luffy. A drunken Kaido makes an appearance in Okobore town in his azure dragon form. Law explains to Kinemon that he, along with the Straw Hats, were identified by the Beast Pirates. He explains that Kaido dealt in an underground smile fruit operation led by Doflamingo. However, because Luffy destroyed the factories in both Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, he ended the smile fruit operation, meaning that Kaido is in mad pursuit of Luffy. Luffy starts running toward the town. Law chases after him while the others stay behind to avoid getting exposed again. However, after seeing the rampage, Kinemon and Kiku also go because Tsuru was residing in that town. At Okobore town, Shutenmaru runs from Kaido. Kaido approaches him and offers to form an alliance with him, but Shutenmaru refuses. Then Hawkins appears and lies to Kaido, telling him that Law and Luffy are at the ruins of Oden's castle. Kaido believes him and leaves to the castle. However, as the Straw Hats were hiding near Oden's castle, they were in direct danger of Kaido's attacks. Kaido unleashes his devastating Bolo Breath move, sending a jet of fire destroying Oden's castle, blasting through the mountain and into many towns. Shocked by Kaido's dragon power, Luffy screams out his name. Kaido's Bolo Breath destroys Oden's castle, leaving the witnesses in shock, including Luffy, Hawkins, and Jack. In anger, Luffy chases after Kaido, who unleashes a drunken rampage on Okobore town. He jumps into the sky and uses his elephant gun move to strike Kaido in the head, causing him to fall to the ground. Kinemon and Kiku, having survived Kaido's attack, get up. To Kinemon's shock, however, he finds a smoldering gap where Oden's castle was. He goes to the town in case Kaido wakes up and rampages again, while Kiku goes to the mountain to find Momonosuke and the other Straw Hats. Luffy also heads in the same direction, only to find Speed's injured body. Speed explains that she was taking Tama back home but was encountered by Kaido. They were attacked by Kaido's fire breath. Luffy laments Tama's death. Out of anger, he shouts out Kaido's name, making the dragon wake up. They almost immediately engage in fierce battle. Kaido manages to knock Luffy into the ground using his tail, but Luffy gets up. In Tama's memory, he uses the elephant Gatling gun on Kaido, pummeling him with giant hockey-infused fists. Luffy pummels Kaido using his elephant Gatling gun move. Despite this, Kaido is unharmed and he knocks Luffy back with a belch. He then proceeds to attack Luffy with his tail and shoots fireballs, but Luffy evades the attacks and knocks Kaido to the ground using his Grizzly Magnum move. Kaido is largely unharmed by Luffy's attacks and turns back into his human form. He gets up and is dizzy from intoxication, but Luffy continues to fight, transforming into his Gear 4, Boundman form. He pummels Kaido with the Kong organ gun move, sending him flying and crashing into many buildings. Despite this, Kaido gets up. They participate in a final clash, and Kaido ends with victory and defeats Luffy using the Raimi Haki move. Law attempts to rescue Luffy, but is stopped by Hawkins, who launches a sea stone nail into his arm, preventing him from using his Devil Fruit ability. Hawkins attacks Law with his Straw Sword, but Law gets the nail out in time and escapes using his Shambles move. Kaido stands over Luffy, scoffing at his aspirations to be the Pirate King. After having defeated Luffy, Kaido orders his men to imprison him. However, even while unconscious, Luffy manages to use Haoshoku Haki and knock out the goons. Despite this, Kaido transforms into his dragon form and goes back to Onigashima. After escaping Hawkins, Law ends up in a forest, still injured by the nail. However, Hawkins finds Luffy and arrests him. Meanwhile, Okobore town has been devastated by Kaido's attack. Tsuru tends to an injured old man, where Kinemon in disguise sees her for the first time in 20 years. He also sees Doji ride by. Kiku finds a giant sinkhole where Odin's castle once was. She finds that the Straw Hats were inside. Shinobu had used her devil fruit to decay the ground, creating a sinkhole. The Straw Hats fell in, avoiding Kaido's bolo breath, and Chopper used his guard point to save the others from falling. Meanwhile, Inuarashi finds Tama's unconscious body. She had survived Kaido's attack and was still breathing. Wanted posters of Luffy are released throughout the country, and the Straw Hats are shocked that Luffy would take on Kaido himself. Luffy is taken to Udon, Wano Country's industrial district, to be forced into slavery. One of the particularly dangerous prisoners, who is hidden, is fed poisonous fish, but the guards are instructed to remove the bones first. However, the guard does not do so. Luffy walks through and glares at the guards. One guard mocks him and attacks him, but the unknown prisoner spits out a sharp fishbone at him, piercing him in the neck. Luffy is sent to his cell and finds Eustace Kid, who also swears revenge on Kaido. They immediately recognize each other, ending the Wano Country arc's first act. Newspapers reach Kurigana Island, the island where Zoro trained. Dracule Mihawk receives a newspaper from one of the birds. Perona also sees the newspaper and is shocked to see Moria's image on the front page, apparently having carried out a zombie raid. She's happy to hear that Moria is still alive, and decides to leave to see him again. Before she leaves, Mihawk tells her that leaving was the best decision, as a strange topic was brought up at the Levely. Meanwhile, on Fulalid, an island dubbed the Pirate Paradise, Blackbeard sits in the shadows near a newspaper depicting Sabo. Then Moria's army raids the island in search of Absalom. Moria demands to see Teach. One of Blackbeard's captains, Avalo Pizarro, watches. Then Moria spots Absalom, to his relief. However, Moria is attacked from behind by an invisible assailant. Moria finds that the attacker, Shiryu, has Absalom's devil fruit ability to become invisible. He then finds that Absalom was really Katarina Devon in disguise. Moria realizes, to his horror, that Absalom has been killed for his devil fruit powers. Just then, Blackbeard uses his devil fruit ability to create a tremor, drawing Moria's attention. He warns Moria through Denden Mushi not to interfere, then tells the citizens to board his ship. Blackbeard then informs Moria of recent news. On the fourth day of the Levely, officers of the Revolutionary Army appeared and clashed against Admirals Fujitora and Ryokugyu in an attempt to free Kuma. In other news, Luffy and other members of the Worst Generation are gathered in Wano Country, with Big Mom in mad pursuit of Luffy. Blackbeard then creates another tremor. As the Wano Country arc's second act begins, Inuarashi and Doji quickly engage in a sword fight. The battle leads in a standstill. Mid-battle, Inuarashi exclaims that he is here to fulfill Odin's dream of taking over the country again. Suddenly, the battle is interrupted by Kinemon's fire slash. Doji immediately walks away from the battle. He explains that he is refusing to join the plan because Kinemon abandoned the country for 20 years. Back at Hitetsu's house, Tama's injuries are treated by Chopper and a few mink doctors. She explains that she fainted from fear upon seeing Kaido, but was otherwise unharmed aside from a few minor scratches. Chopper explains, to her shock, that Luffy had been captured and sent to Udon's excavation camp. In Udon, Luffy is sentenced to hard labor, where he must carry large blocks of stone. He receives 1 kibidango for every 5 blocks he hauls. However, Eustace Kid runs past, knocking the dango out of Luffy's hand and trampling over it. Kid, who works extremely fast, gets an enormous pile of dumplings to eat. In the Flower Capital, while the newsboy informs the people about various criminals, several of Kinemon's allies, including Usopp, a heart pirate, and Beppo, hand out flyers to recruit allies. Many of these allies mysteriously find the paper in their hands, calling it the work of a ghost. Some recruits are hesitant while some are willing to join. Meanwhile, Nami and Shinobu spy on Orochi's mansion. Shinobu uses her devil fruit powers to decay holes into the attic, where they spy on Orochi's men from above. However, they are caught and barely escape, with Shinobu panicking. In Onigashima, the other 2 all-stars of the Beast Pirates, King and Queen, reprimand Jack for not bringing in enough offerings from Kuri. They also furiously bicker with each other. Nami and Shinobu are caught spying on Orochi's men in the attic. The soldiers pierce through the ceiling with spears, which causes Shinobu to panic. They climb into the attic, but Nami and Shinobu just manage to escape onto the rooftop. Shinobu reveals that she panicked because she was terrified of sharp objects. Despite being caught, Nami found out where Orochi was stockpiling his weapons. They leave using Shinobu's kite. Along the way, they see Sanji, who has attracted a line of hungry customers posing as a soba chef. However, he attracts some rivals who spy on him. Meanwhile, in Udon, Luffy and Kid work furiously to haul stone blocks, each earning a giant pile of dango. However, the warden, Dobon, a smile user who rides inside a hippo's mouth, is furious that his food stores have been depleted by Kid and Luffy. The hippo swallows Luffy and Kid, where Dobon could attack them inside the hippo's stomach. However, even weakened by sea stone handcuffs, Luffy and Kid manage to defeat Dobon, who spills out of the hippo's mouth. The prisoners cheer for them as they walk away. Sanji becomes popular from his soba shop, but he attracts some unwanted rivals. Members of the Kyoshiro family approach him and demand that he pays to run his business. When Sanji refuses, the thugs start to attack the shop and terrorize a little girl, knocking her bowl of soba onto the floor. Strangely, tears appear in the girl's eyes, but she laughs. Sanji is greatly angered by the wasted soba. They quickly begin to fight, and Sanji easily emerges victorious. Frankie also joins in and defeats a thug. Sanji then force feeds the wasted soba to one of the fighters. After the fighters have been tied up, the little girl appears. She introduces herself as Otoko, a name the Straw Hats find humorous because it means male. She also reveals that she works as a kamuro, a courtesan's attendant, and worked hard to pay for the soba. A woman chimes in and explains that there is a single oiran, courtesan, named Komurasaki. She also reveals that Robin had been invited to Orochi's mansion. At Udon's excavation camp, Luffy becomes a celebrity among the prisoners for beating up Dobon. He also gives some food tickets to an old man that he saved earlier. Then Reizo appears, having snuck into the prison. He reveals that he knows the location of the key to Luffy's sea stone handcuffs, but it is kept under tight security. Reizo disappears and goes to steal the key. Back at the flower capital, Komurasaki walks up to Orochi's mansion. Komurasaki the Oiran parades through the streets of the flower capital, stunning the spectators with her beauty. In Udon, Luffy continues to break rocks but is approached by Caribou, who begs him for food. Previously, Caribou met Luffy in the Sabaudi archipelago and terrorized Fishman Island, but was defeated by Luffy. He would later continue his crimes in the New World until being captured by X-Drake and was sent to Udon for hard labor. Meanwhile, Kyoshiro's henchmen, who were defeated by Sanji, report to their leader. Kyoshiro is unfazed, but decides to contact Queen to send assassins after Sanji. At the castle, Orochi finally appears as a multi-headed serpent. At the procession, a group of people threatens to assassinate Komurasaki. However, they are swiftly defeated by guards. More about one of the assassins, an old man named Bingo, is revealed. Bingo was an old man who fell in love with Komurasaki, who promised him that they could live together if Bingo bought her freedom from the pleasure house. To earn money, Bingo became a miserly moneylender, who sold his storehouse, abandoned his wife, and stopped buying medicine for himself to save money. Sickly and homeless, Bingo finally raised the money to free Komurasaki from the pleasure house. He would find out, however, that Komurasaki spent Bingo's money on herself, and she had no intention of marrying him. Bingo was humiliated, penniless, and heartbroken, and was cruelly beaten by other men. Back in the present day, Bingo and the other assassins are exiled from the flower capital for being poor. Komurasaki reveals that she exploits unsuspecting men for their money. Zoro goes to a gambling house where he plays an odds and evens game with dice. He wins, earning an impressive sum. However, the other Straw Hats do not know where he is, so they consider him missing. At the construction company, Frankie is reprimanded by his boss, Minatomo, for arriving to work late. Frankie asks for the blueprints for Kaido's mansion, but Minatomo states that he had pawned them away a decade ago. After starting a fight, Frankie is fired and leaves to go to the pawn shop. Frankie goes to the pawn shop where he is led to another person named Kumagoro. He goes around town in search of the blueprints, being led to different people, and eventually reaching a dead end as he is told the blueprints are in Kuri. He finds Kanjuro, who is selling fish drawn with his devil fruit ability. Kinemon then calls, telling him to support other missions around the capital. Meanwhile, Wanda, Carrot, and other minks break into a factory to steal food and weapons. They leave a note saying that the Mount Atama thieves were the culprits. This way, the Beast Pirates would blame and attack Doji for the theft, forcing him to join Kinemon's alliance. Wanda and Carrot bring the supplies to Kinemon. At the gambling house, a gambler attempts to cheat against Zoro. A man hiding under the table uses a needle to push the dice over. Detecting the cheating, Zoro unleashes a swordless dragon twister attack, uncovering the table and revealing the man. The gamblers turn on him and begin to fight. Zoro defeats the gamblers and takes the money from the loser. Zoro leaves with one of the gamblers, Tonoyasu, to the town Ebisu. Orochi finally makes a human appearance at his mansion and meets with masked agents of CP0. The agency had previously participating in shady underworld dealings with the Joker Doflamingo. But now that Doflamingo was defeated, CP0 was forced to deal with Wano Country directly. However, because Wano Country was already self-sufficient, Orochi made unreasonable demands, even demanding the mysterious Dr. Vegapunk. Outside the mansion, Komurasaki arrives at the gate. Meanwhile, Momonosuke reveals to Tama that he has a mysterious sister named Hiyori, and he does not know whether or not she is alive. Tonoyasu takes Zoro to his hometown, Ibisu Town. The town is poverty-stricken like Okobore Town, but its citizens laugh despite their circumstances. Citizens of the town claim that an unknown thief named Ushimitsu Kozo steals from the rich and gives the money to poor tenements. A girl offers him a cup of clean water, which to them is a luxury. Meanwhile, at the flower capital, Orochi demands a luxurious dinner, wastefully rejecting many of the prepared meals offered to him. He also demands several geishas, including Robin Undercover, to dance for him. Komurasaki and the Kiyoshiro family also join in the dinner party. Sanji is working at his soba shop when Law comes and warns him of incoming threats. He explains that the top 6 Shinichi of the Beast's pirates are known as Tobiroppo. 2 of these Tobiroppo, Page 1 and X Drake, are after Sanji, with Hawkins also joining in. Both are ancient Zoan users. Page 1 can transform into a Spinosaurus and Drake an Allosaurus. At Uden, Caribou tells Luffy a false rumor that Eustace Kid lost his arm at the hands of one of Big Mom's subordinates. Kid suddenly appears and debunks this rumor, stating that he lost his arm battling the Red Hair Pirates. Nami and Shinobu land their kites on the rooftop of Orochi's mansion and make their way inside. Inside, Robin sneaks out. Brook also snoops around, using his devil fruit ability to separate his soul from his body. He finds a strangely reinforced door, and upon passing through the door, he finds Kaido's poneglyph. In Onigashima, Kaido is informed that Big Mom is arriving from the southeast, and that her ship is riding up the waterfall being carried by Carp. Kaido orders his men to fire at her ship. The cannons fire, but Perospero blocks the fire with candy. Then other Big Mom pirates destroy the cannons. Big Mom exclaims that she won't let Luffy get away. Orochi throws a banquet at his mansion as a pre-party for the upcoming fire festival. He tells his subjects to dance and drink. Just outside Wano Country, Kaido's cannons attempt to sink Big Mom's ship, but they fail to do so. Big Mom's ship passes through 7 defense lines, so Queen prepares a final defense. However, Big Mom breaks through the defense line using her Ikoku attack, cutting off Queen's surveillance. Big Mom's ship is now climbing the waterfall into the country. In response, Kaido declares an all-out war against the Big Mom pirates. King decides to be proactive. He uses his ancient Zoan powers to transform into a Pteranodon. He flies out to Big Mom's ship and pushes the ship back down the waterfall. Big Mom then falls overboard and into a whirlpool, sinking due to being unable to swim. Page 1 walks through the flower capital in his Spinosaurus form and rampages, destroying soba shops. Sanji, who must avoid getting caught by the beast pirates, runs away. However, upon hearing the cries of the terrorized citizens, Sanji rushes to confront Page 1. He takes out his raid suit, ready to battle. Sanji activates his raid suit can, transforming into a more powerful, scientifically advanced Stealth Black. Although he is formally named Stealth Black in Germa 66, Sanji decides to name himself Soba Mask. Sanji begins fighting Page 1, knocking him down with a kick in the throat. Page 1 attacks with his claw, but Sanji then blocks the attack with his cape, which turns into a solid shield. Most notably, Sanji's suit allows him to turn invisible, allowing him to attack Page 1 with super speed. Page 1 collapses and transforms into his hybrid form. Meanwhile, in Udon, Luffy asks Eustace Kid for more dumplings while in his cell, who ignores him. Orochi's lavish party continues at his mansion, and Komurasaki plays him a song on her shamisen. Meanwhile, Robin, who has snuck out of the party, looks in a room for the poneglyph. However, she is quickly detected by the Orochi Oniwabanshu, Shogun Orochi's personal military force consisting of ninjas. Fukurokuju, the ninja leader, gives Robin a chance to explain herself. Sanji, as Soba Mask, continues to battle fiercely against Page 1. At one point, Page 1 gets the upper hand, picking Sanji up and throwing him into houses. Sanji is unharmed, but wants to avoid damaging the houses in battle. So, after unleashing one powerful attack, Sanji escapes into the sky. Usopp, Law, and Frankie also flee to avoid being identified. Most of the Big Mom pirates survive the attack from King unharmed, but they are separated from Big Mom, who is sinking to the bottom of the sea. Meanwhile, Komurasaki finishes her song on her shamisen. Robin is confronted by the Orochi Oniwabanshu, who offers her a quick and painless death if she told them the truth. Robin attempts to lie to get out, but the ninjas detect this and attack her. Robin attempts to escape, but one of the ninjas captures her with a grappling hook on a rope. Another ninja attacks her with shurikens. After being attacked, Robin disintegrates, revealing that it is simply a clone of herself made with her devil fruit ability. The real Robin, who is outside, contacts Nami and Shinobu, who decide to go after Fukurokuju. Robin then is forced to disconnect, keeping her disguise as a geisha and attending to a drunk partygoer. Brook decides to go out to protect Robin, separating his soul from his body. Meanwhile, the ninjas scatter, not wanting to disrupt Orochi's party. On the beaches of Kuri, Chopper trains with Tama while Momonosuke practices his swordsmanship. They express concern for Raizo, who has infiltrated the Udon prison but has not responded to them yet. Chopper then climbs a bamboo stalk and notices a mysterious large object in the distance. Robin rejoins the party, attending to Orochi and pouring him a drink. She manages to get some plans from Orochi about the upcoming fire festival. Orochi reveals that there will be a lavish banquet, and all the country's major officials and Beast's pirates will be there. Meanwhile, Brook floats through the hallways but is spotted by the ninjas. Brook appears in front of them, who are frightened, mistaking him for a ghost. The ninjas then do a full sweep of the mansion, searching all the rooms and stabbing the ceiling, scaring Nami and Shinobu hiding in the attic. They also search the party area, and Robin hides from patrolling ninja. Chopper and the others go to the object and find, to their shock, that it is the unconscious body of Big Mom, who is washed ashore after King's attack. To their horror, she wakes up. However, she has lost all her memories and does not know who or where she is. Big Mom has lost all her memory from King's attack, even forgetting her own name. Chopper, who wants to avoid reminding her that she was an emperor, lies, stating that her name is Olin. Big Mom believes him. Meanwhile, Orochi retells the ghost story of Wano and the prophecy told. He states that as this was the 20th anniversary of Odin's death, the 9 red scabbards are bound to make their return as ghosts and restore the Kazuki family's reign. He is already aware of the intruders that entered Wano country, Zorojuro and Sangoro, and suspects that they are allied with Kinemon. The partygoers think he is delusional and stifle laughs to prevent offending Orochi. However, Toko decides to laugh very plainly and loudly, despite others trying to stop her. Angered, Orochi prepares to attack her, but is stopped by Komurasaki, who slaps him across the face. Komurasaki then refuses to bow to Orochi, then reveals that she is a samurai's daughter. Infuriated that his most beautiful subject has turned on him, Orochi turns into an 8-headed serpent. Still, Komurasaki refuses to apologize. At that point, Orochi goes into a blind rampage, attacking innocent partygoers with his other 7 heads. He then bites Komurasaki, crushing her body in his jaws. Meanwhile, Robin rescues Toko and takes her away, but is spotted and cornered by the ninjas. However, Brook scares them off, pretending to be a ghost. Kyoshiro relishes in the slaughter, calling it pandemonium, then unsheathes his sword. The ninjas refuse to help the Oiran because they are busy dealing with an intruder. They expose Robin in front of the party, revealing that she is an intruder. However, Brook appears and scares most of the ninjas away, and Robin fights some of them off with her devil fruit ability. Nami and Shinobu watch from the ceiling when they are confronted by a ninja, Hanzo. Hanzo explains that Shinobu used to be extremely attractive and would kill her victims by seducing them first, earning her the name Man-Killer. Shinobu then knocks out Hanzo, then rots the ceiling, causing all 3 of them to crash into the banquet. Some rubble hits Orochi's head, causing him to let go of Komurasaki. Orochi gets back up and finds Komurasaki, but Kyoshiro steps in, unsheathes his sword, and slices her chest. This even angers Orochi. Kyoshiro states that Komurasaki broke the Iron Rule by disobeying the shogun. However, he finds the paper containing the rebellion symbol, implying that Komurasaki is affiliated with Kinemon's alliance. Orochi then goes to attack Robin to capture Toko. The ninjas also realize that Brook is not attacking them, and they stop fearing him. However, Nami takes out Zeus, who has been stored in her climb attack. Nami feeds Zeus some weather eggs, and Zeus then unleashes a powerful lightning attack, striking down Orochi. The next day, the officers of Udon is alerted that Eustace Kid has escaped. At the same time, Chopper's group takes Big Mom to Okabori town, where Tsuru feeds her red bean soup. Tama gets the idea of leading her to Udon to help break Luffy out of prison. She tells Big Mom that there was more red bean soup at Udon. This plan works, and Big Mom prepares to leave for Udon. Kanjuro meets with Nami's group in a snowy cottage far away from the flower capital, Kanjuro states that the most powerful Yakuza 20 years ago was Hyogoro, who was far more humane and caring than Kiyoshiro was at the party. They also report their findings. Robin was unable to get any useful information, but Brooke found a poneglyph, though it was not read. They decide to go back to the flower capital to relax at a bathhouse. Sanji's group is also hiding in Abisu town. They read the news, which tells of Komurasaki's death and kids' escape from prison. Law predicts that Luffy will be part of an uprising in Udon. However, Sanji asks if there is a bathhouse, causing the others to tackle Sanji. A group of children enters and plays with Sanji's raid suit can. The Big Mom pirates are back at the bottom of the waterfall. They cannot go back up because King is defending the top. They know that Big Mom survived the fall as Perospero's Vivre card is still intact, so they decide to wait at the bottom for any news. Big Mom and Chopper's group ride on a crocodile towards Udon. Strangely, Kiku forbids Tama and Momonosuke from using the word Tsunachi, stating that it is inappropriate to use. Kiku then explains the structure of Wano country, which is divided in 6 regions. Kuri is in the far west and Udon is just east of it. The other 4 regions are Kibi, a wasteland, the flower capital at the center, Ringo, a snowy region, and Hakumai, a port region. Separated from the mainland is an island named Onigashima. In Udon, Luffy once again helps the old man Hio by breaking rocks and giving him meal tickets. However, he is interrogated by Alpacaman about Kid's escape. Alpacaman, a smile fruit user, covers Luffy in smelly spit. Hio is also beaten by Daifugo, a scorpion smile fruit user, for getting his food tickets from someone else. Witnessing the beating, Luffy walks up to confront Daifugo. Raizo disguises himself as a prison guard to get into the sea stone box containing the handcuff keys. Although he is caught, he quickly defeats the guards and pins a crab smile user to the wall with shuriken. Raizo then runs through the hallways and defeats the guards. Hio refuses to tell Daifugo who gave him the food tickets. He states that Wano country used to be full of civil samurai during Odin's reign, but has since been replaced by ruffian pirates. Luffy then steps in, kicking Daifugo in the face and freeing Hio. The guards chant to kill Luffy. Luffy fights off some of the guards until Babanuki, an elephant smile user, and the prison warden appears. Babanuki has an elephant on his stomach, who sneezes a cannonball at Luffy. Luffy, unable to use his devil fruit power or haki, is knocked back. Solitaire, the prison's vice warden and a monkey smile user, finds out about the stolen keys. She reprimands the crab guard for failing to capture the thief. Just then, Queen arrives at the prison for his showtime, with the prison guards cheering him on. He obsesses over a photo of Komurasaki, unaware of her death. He then goes up to the stage and performs a short musical number. He is formally introduced as Queen the Plague, the lead performer of the Beast Pirates. With the guards distracted, Luffy carries Hio away, attempting to climb a wall to escape the prison. Babanuki describes the circumstances to Queen, telling him about Kid's escape, the stolen keys, and Luffy attempting to escape. Queen tells his men to chase after Luffy. Luffy and Hio attempt to climb the wall to escape, but falls after being bombarded with arrows and rocks from below. He is then attacked with Babanuki's elephant cannonballs. Queen says that he has something to say to Luffy. In the flower capital, Nami, Robin, and Shinobu go to a bathhouse and relax in a steam room. Nami is frustrated it is a mixed bathhouse as many perverted men watch her while ignoring Shinobu. Shinobu uses a ninjutsu move on the men for insulting her, striking their groin. They then go to another room to have their backs washed by an octopus. One of the people at the spa mentions Hyogoro, prompting further discussion. Shinobu explains that Hyogoro was a highly respected person during Odin's reign, even gaining the loyalty from the leaders of the other 5 regions, and Odin himself. However, it is rumored that after the Kurozumi family took over, Hyogoro refused to serve Orochi and was killed. On the other hand, Fukurokuju agreed to serve Orochi and was spared, becoming the leader of his personal ninja force. Shinobu reveals that she was one of the ninjas serving Orochi before she defected, and that is how Hanzo knew her. Queen speaks with Hio, who is revealed to be Hyogoro and Luffy. He states that if Luffy joined the Beast Pirates, he will be pardoned for his acts. However, Luffy refuses. Raizo, having acquired Luffy's handcuff keys, finds Luffy near Queen. Suddenly, the mysterious fish-eating prisoner from before calls out his name. Raizo is shocked to see his comrade, Kawamatsu, though he is chained to the wall. Unfortunately, Raizo is spotted near the cell and Solitaire is notified. He disappears in smoke. Queen's men carry out a giant sumo ring for Luffy and Hio to wrestle on as a sort of impossible trial. Luffy and Hio are fitted with a collar that, when they leave the ring, ejects sharp blades to decapitate them. However, to their advantage, their sea stone handcuffs are removed. Luffy asks if they could be released from prison if they beat Queen. Queen laughs at Luffy for suggesting that he could defeat him. The terrifying sumo match then begins, and Luffy is presented with a gang of fighters. However, Luffy defeats them effortlessly, and Queen calls out the pleasures. Kawamatsu watches the match from his cell while Luffy beats up more pirates with minimal effort. Meanwhile, Hawkins raids the bathhouse that Nami's group is at, somehow knowing about the Alliance's operations. He lines up all the people to check their ankles for the reverse crescent symbol, somehow knowing about the symbol. They prepare to arrest Nami, but her robe falls, revealing her breasts and knocking everyone back, including Drake. Sanji also appears, apparently having been hiding using his raid suit. He suffers a nosebleed and crashes into a wall. Hawkins and Drake, both being from North Blue, recognize him as Stealth Black of Germa 66. The guests go into a frenzied panic in fear of Germa 66. Nami's group attempts to escape during the commotion, but are confronted by Hawkins and Drake. Sanji briefly fights them before picking up the others and bursting through the ceiling and flying away. They head to Ebisu town to meet up with Usopp's group. In Ringo, a thief attacks swordsmen and collects their swords. At a bridge, he is confronted by Zoro, whose sword, Shusui, has been stolen from him. The thief states that Shusui did not belong to Zoro as it was stolen from Ryuma's grave. They quickly enter battle as Zoro wants to take the thief's sword collection. Big Mom rides to Udon where she and Tama express their love for red bean soup. Chopper fears that Big Mom will return to her normal self if she finds out that there was no red bean soup. However, Queen enjoys several bowls of the soup, revealing there was plenty of soup at Udon. Luffy continues to defeat the pleasures with ease, so Queen decides to bring out the gifters. Luffy is put against Batman, with advanced hearing, flight, and a bow and arrow, and Gazelman, with super speed. Despite this, Luffy defeats them relatively swiftly with haki-imbued punches. Still, Luffy is disappointed that he could not defeat them without touching them like Rayleigh did. At the Bridge of Ringo, the sword thief, identified as Gyukimaru, battles against Zoro. He becomes angry when Zoro states that he met Ryuma. Gyukimaru explains Ryuma's significance. Several nobles in the past attempted to take over Wano country, but Ryuma was a formidable samurai who prevented them from doing so. Their duel is interrupted by Komurasaki, who somehow survived Kyoshiro's attack, but is running away from an assassin, Hitokiri Kamazo, the slasher previously mentioned in the news. Kamazo intends to kill Toko for laughing and Komurasaki for disrespecting the shogun. Zoro helps Komurasaki in exchange for sake and food. Zoro and Kamazo begin fighting, and the duel reaches a standstill as they seem equally matched. Zoro removes his outer garment, ready to fight harder. Kinemon is informed that their rebellion symbol has somehow been leaked. At the moment, Orochi's men set out to arrest everyone with the reverse crescent tattoo on their ankle. At the Sumo Inferno, Luffy is placed against Bearman, a bear smile fruit user with a tough body, easily taking Luffy's punches unharmed. Luffy again imbues his fist with haki and strikes Bearman in the chest, knocking him over and defeating him. The Flower Capital mourns the supposed death of Komurasaki. The person hit the hardest was Orochi, who cries profusely because his love interest was slain in front of him. Kyoshiro states that killing her was necessary because he had to devastate Orochi. He reveals that he has a rebellion flyer hidden in his robe. Sanji's group returns to Ebisu town where he is beaten for intruding in the bathhouse. Shinobu blames the others for potentially jeopardizing the operation, accusing Beppo of telling Orochi's men about the symbol. Kanjuro tells her to stop blaming people, as the operation will fail without them. Tonoyasu then enters, stating that the rebellion symbol has been leaked all over the capital. Zoro continues his battle against the slasher Hitokiri Kamazo. At one point, Kamazo gets the upper hand and stabs Zoro in the shoulder. However, he cannot remove his scythe from Zoro's wound, and Zoro now has a third sword to use. With 3 swords, Zoro swiftly defeats Kamazo, leaving him unconscious in the snow. Gyukimaru decides to leave with his weapons, not wanting to fight Zoro. Zoro collapses in the snow from his injury. Luffy and Hyogoro are placed against Alpacaman and Medillaman, an armadillo smile fruit user. Hyogoro fights against Alpacaman, where Luffy uses haki to predict Alpacaman's movements and tell Hyogoro what moves to make in response. Meanwhile, Luffy fights against Medillaman and attempts to defeat him without touching him, but struggles to do so, attacking him with regular haki. Medillaman and Alpacaman use a combination technique to take down Luffy. However, this still fails as Luffy knocks them both back, sending them crashing into a wall. He is disappointed that he still couldn't beat them without touching them. The rebels with the crescent tattoos are gathered in a giant prison to be publicly shamed. Among the prisoners are a few heart pirates, including Beppo. Komurasaki and Toko take Zoro to a cottage for his wounds to be treated. Zoro tries to leave to pursue the sword thief, but Komurasaki stops him because his wounds have not healed. She explains to him that she angered Orochi, so an assassin, Kamazo, was sent to kill her. Finally, she reveals that she is Momonosuke's long-lost sister, Hiyori. Zoro tells Hiyori that he is Momonosuke's ally, confirming that he, along with Kinemon and the others, are all alive. Hiyori explains the fateful day 20 years ago. When Orochi overthrew the Kozuki family, Toki used her devil fruit powers to send Kinemon, Momonosuke, Kanjuro, Raizo, and Kikunojo 20 years into the future. Hiyori was left behind so that if Momonosuke did not make it into the future, the Kozuki bloodline would not die. Both Oden and Toki would be slain during the coup, but Hiyori would survive as Kawamatsu helped her escape. Kawamatsu would then raise her throughout her childhood. After she finishes the story, Zoro tells her about the status of the operation. His group has located 6 of the 9 red scabbards, but not the other 3. Hiyori explains that the other 3 are Kawamatsu, Denjiro, and Doji. They then go to sleep to get some rest. Law gets into a disagreement with Shinobu because she accused the Heart Pirates of giving away the plans. He leaves the group in rage. They worry about Law, but the town is encountered by the 3 criminals from Komurasaki's procession, Bingo, Bongo, and Bungo. They were criminals operating in the capital who bribed officials to ignore their crimes, but they fell in love with Komurasaki, who robbed them all and exiled them from the capital. Tonoyasu welcomed them into Ebisu town, but they continued to act rude towards the townspeople. Meanwhile, Luffy is disappointed that he cannot beat his opponents without touching them. Hyogoro explains that Wano country has a technique for doing so, and demonstrates this by defeating Alpaca Men without touching him. Hyogoro teaches Luffy how to use Ryuo, the Wano country equivalent of Haki. Luffy struggles at first, but Hyogoro tells him to make his unused Haki flow to his fist. Luffy still struggles and keeps beating people by punching them the regular way. Meanwhile, in Ebisu town, Tonoyasu discusses the symbol of the rebellion. The others think the plan is ruined because the symbol got leaked, but Tonoyasu says that it worked in their favor because now many people know about the symbol and are willing to join the alliance. Tonoyasu joins their cause before leaving to tend to the other citizens. Tonoyasu goes around tending to the people, checking up on them, giving them food, and playing with children. The old woman explains that Tonoyasu gets his income from his daughter, Toko, who works at the capital and sends it to him. Tonoyasu would give most of it away to the townspeople. Nightfall arrives and Luffy is still in the sumo match, but still does not know how to use Ryuo. After knocking out the guards with Haki, he reveals that he plans to take down Kaido and restore the Kozuki family. Raizo appears, having recruited Caribou into the alliance. Hyogoro then expresses gratitude that the Revolution Alliance has survived to the present day, then asks to join the cause. Raizo allows him. Hyogoro gets the idea of recruiting the Udon prisoners to fight for them, as most of the prisoners were arrested for treason. The others accept this idea, and Raizo gets to work breaking Kawamatsu out of his cell. Caribou takes out a giant pot of red bean soup stolen from Queen. News gets out that the infamous thief Ushimitsu Kozo has been caught. It is revealed that the thief is Tonoyasu. Orochi hears about the capture and is shocked to hear that he was still alive. Orochi sentences Tonoyasu to be executed. Kyoshiro suggests burying him next to Komurasaki's body. Queen hears the devastating news from Kaido that Komurasaki has died, and he starts crying. On the sumo ring, Luffy and Hyogoro have gotten plump from drinking the whole pot of red bean soup, but the officers do not tell Queen because he is already shocked by Komurasaki's death. Meanwhile, Holedum's men engage in battle against Shutamaru's thieves on Mount Adama, as Carrot's group previously framed Shutenmaru for thievery. Hold'em also blames Shutenmaru for his defeat in Bakura Town, as he believes that Luffy was his subordinate. He sets fire to the mountain. Shutenmaru's men retreat to Bakura Town. Wanda and Carrot, who were watching from the peak, decide to contact Inuarashi about it. Kinemon laments tricking Hold'em into destroying Shutenmaru's hideout, but decide to head to Bakura Town to recruit Shutenmaru. In Ringo, Brook goes into a cottage only to find Hiyori sleeping with Zoro. They wake up, and Brook fills them in with the news. Upon hearing that Tonoyasu was caught and sentenced to execution, Toko immediately runs out to go save her father. In the flower capital, Tonoyasu is escorted out of his cell and to his execution. Komurasaki's coffin is escorted through the streets for her body to be cremated. The citizens mourn her death. Orochi also rides to the execution area to watch Tonoyasu's execution. Tonoyasu is tied to a cross, and the post is raised, placing him high into the sky. He reminisces on his past life with Odin. A live video of the execution is shown in Bakura Town, Ebisu Town, and Udon. The townspeople of Ebisu Town continue to laugh, and Holedem watches the event in Bakura Town. Kinemon rides through Bakura Town to look for Shutenmaru when he sees the broadcast, shocked that Tonoyasu is still alive. Hyogoro, who watches from Udon, also recognizes him. They reveal that Tonoyasu's real name is, in reality, Shimotsuki Yasue. Yasue's past is revealed. He was the daimyo of Hakumai before Odin became shogun, and he was a serious person who never smiled. Odin was kicked out of the castle by his father, Sukiyaki, so he stayed at Hakumai with Yasui. Back to the present day, the townspeople beg the officers to let Yasui down, but he keeps laughing. He states that he wants to apologize for two things, then say something to Orochi. The first bullet is fired at him. His charges and sentence are then read by an officer. Toko, who has reached the border of the town, calls out for her father. The people of Ebisu Town, along with Usopp, Nami, and Robin, charge into the flower capital to save Yasui from his execution. The people battle against the guards of the flower capital. Yasui makes his final statement. He praises Wano country for being a once beautiful country with forests and rivers thanks to the Kazuki family, but calls out a country, calling him nothing but vermin. Yasue laughs, even as the executioner points his rifle at him. To save the rebellion, Yasui decides to die, stating that the rebellion flyers were a prank orchestrated by him, and the people with crescent tattoos are not rebels. Orochi finally arrives at the execution area and prepares to shoot him. Yasui tells Orochi, a man of such small caliber will never truly devour Odin. He reveals that he has changed the rendezvous point on the flyers so that the revolution will live on. Shots are fired at Yasui. Yasui recalls when he was a daimyo. The 9 red scabbards were captured for stealing money and brought to him. Because Yasui recognizes that Odin was going through financial struggles, he lets them keep the money they stole. On the cross, Yasui also sees his daughter Toko running to him. He remembers a moment when he walked with his daughter and let her ride on his back. In his last moments, he apologizes to her for leaving her behind before finally dying. His body falls off the cross and hits the ground. To Zoro's frustration, the citizens of Ebisu Town, including Toko, start laughing at the body. Hiyori explains that they are physically unable of showing any emotion except laughter because of Kaido's smile fruits. The citizens mourn Yasui's death, though the people of Ebisu Town laugh over the death. Shinobu and Hiyori explain the smile fruits. Kaido wanted to increase the strength of his army, so he purchased artificial Zoan fruits from Doflamingo. However, the success rate of these fruits is 10%, meaning only 10% of smile fruit eaters successfully gain an ability. The other 90% would permanently lose their ability to swim, as well as express any emotion other than joy. Fighters of the Beast Pirates are divided into 3 categories. The waiters have not eaten a smile fruit, the gifters are those who gain smile fruit powers, and the pleasures are those who have eaten smile fruits but failed to gain powers. Ebisu Town's dark history is revealed. It was a poverty-stricken town that received its food from the capital. Orochi took some failed smile fruits that have already been bitten and gave them to the town. Given no other source of food, the people of Ebisu Town ate the defective fruits and suffered its negative side effects. Toko decides to break past the fence and go to her father's corpse. Orochi sees her and prepares to shoot her, blaming her for Komurasaki's death. However, Zoro and Sanji stop him, breaking through the fence and cutting the bullets in 2. The samurai start fighting Zoro and Sanji, who fight them off easily. Zoro then sends a flying slash towards Orochi, but Kyoshiro deflects the attack. Kyoshiro decides to battle against Zoro, while Orochi rides back to the castle. X-Drake then transforms into his Allosaurus form and attacks Sanji. The firing squad also fires their rifles at Zoro and Sanji, but Franky blocks the bullets with his cyborg body. Franky takes Yasui's body away. Usopp, Robin, and Nami also fight at his side. The Straw Hats decide to finish up their battle on the execution ground. Zoro battles with Kyoshiro, Sanji battles with Drake, and Usopp, Robin, Franky, and Nami deal with the other soldiers. Luffy cheers from the sumo ring in Udon. Just then, Queen gets the news that some criminals have arrived. Kamazo, who failed to assassinate Komurasaki, and Kid, who surrendered after his escape, enter the prison. Kid immediately recognized Kamazo as his own crewmate Killer. Killer was somehow forced to eat a smile fruit and therefore can only express happiness. Angered for Kid, Luffy calls out Queen, resuming the sumo match. Zoro continues his battle with Kyoshiro and Sanji with Drake. However, the Orochi Oni Wabanshu appear. With the help of Hawkins, the ninjas have identified them as members of the Straw Hat Pirates. The ninjas scatter and all attack the Straw Hats. Meanwhile, in Udon, Kid and Killer are tortured. They are hung upside down and lowered into a barrel of water. Queen then officially resumes the sumo match with a new added rule. As long as Luffy and Hio remain in the ring, Kid and Killer will remain submerged underwater. Luffy demands Queen to come out into the ring, but he refuses. Back at the capital, Law confronts Hawkins at the prison looking for Bepo. However, Hawkins' Devil Fruit ability allows him to redirect damage to his prisoners. Therefore, Law would have to kill his own 3 subordinates before he could harm Hawkins. Sanji keeps fighting with Drake. However, Hiyori screams as she is attacked by ninjas, so Sanji decides to finish the battle quickly to go save her. He defeats Drake with his extra Hachi's move, pummeling him with fiery kicks. He then goes to Hiyori's aid, but Zoro arrives first, taking her away to safety. Outside the prison, Big Mom finally arrives at the gate, ready to claim her red bean soup. Kinemon admits to Ashura that his alliance framed him for theft to turn him against the Beast Pirates. Although Ashura was originally hostile because Mount Adama has been destroyed, Kinemon deeply apologizes for his extreme measures, as well as abandoning the country for the last 20 years. Forgiving him, Ashura asks Kinemon to follow him. At Udon, Big Mom forces her way through all 3 gates of the prison mine and appears, shocking everyone in the prison. She demands to be fed red bean soup, but Queen, who is very fond of the food, refuses, unwilling to share any with her. Queen uses his devil fruit power to transform into a Brachiosaurus. They quickly start to fight. Tama and Momonosuke stay behind at the gate due to it being too dangerous, but Kiku, who dons a disguise, goes inside with Chopper. After traveling through the entrance, they find Big Mom slamming Queen's head into the ground. Big Mom and Queen continue their fight. Queen attempts to stomp on Big Mom, but she manages to lift him and throw him down. She then picks up Queen and throws him into a rock wall, severely damaging the prison. This knocks over the beam, submerging Kid and Killer into water. They fall on the ground, saved from drowning. It also breaks Kawamatsu's cell. Prison guards attempt to contact Kaido in the executive tower, but Caribou stops him from doing so. He explains that the variant Denden Mushi used in Wano country, known as Smart Tanishi, transmit very weak signals, so they require a boss Tanishi to transmit the signals. Raizo decides to go get the keys to free the other prisoners. Big Mom searches for red bean soup and finds a pot of it among the rubble. However, she opens it to find that it is empty, infuriating her. She intended to bring the pot back to Okabor town as a thanks to its citizens for feeding her. She angrily attacks Luffy, who ate the pot earlier. She knocks him and Hyogoro near the edge of the ring. Luffy finally unleashes Ryuo and uses it to tear off their collars. They explode in the air. Big Mom then attacks Hyogoro, and Luffy attempts to use Ryuo again to fight her off. Luffy recalls how he saw Rayleigh used Ryuo. Back at Sabaudi Archipelago, Kami was fitted with an explosive slave collar as she was trafficked into slavery. However, Rayleigh used Ryuo to remove the collar with a single hand. Back in present day, Luffy uses the same method in an attempt to repel Big Mom's attack. Luffy's defense fails, and Big Mom sends him and Hyogoro crashing into a wall. Luffy is unharmed, but Hyogoro was hit hard on the head. Hyogoro congratulates Luffy for successfully learning the technique before he collapses in Luffy's arms. Big Mom chases Luffy around and attacks him, chasing him into the ironworks section and breaking out many prisoners. Meanwhile, Queen gets up and hatches a plan to stop her. He expects that Big Mom will chase Luffy through all 5 labor camps of the prison before making her way back to the stone quarry. He sets up a trap by placing a pot of red bean soup as bait at the quarry. As expected, Big Mom chases Luffy back to the quarry and finds the red bean soup. However, Queen suddenly dives down from above and strikes Big Mom in the head. The head trauma makes her regain her memories. Immediately after Big Mom regains her memories, she collapses, falling asleep. Queen takes the chance to restrain her with pure sea stone cuffs and chains, injects her with tranquilizer, and ships her off to Onigashima to see with most of the wardens on board, leaving only the minimum security guards at Uden. The guards continue to battle against Luffy. Luffy attempts to defeat them using Ryuo, but he struggles to do so. Babanuki orders the prisoners to fight Luffy. The prisoners do not want to battle him, but fear Kaido and Orochi should they join Luffy and break out. They accept that they have no hope of living a life of freedom again, so they obey and restrain Luffy. Daifugo shoots one of the prisoners with a flintlock, which immediately covers his skin with green patches and burns him. The disease also spreads to 2 other prisoners who touch him. Daifugo explains that he shot an Excite bullet, which contained a contagious plague on it. He prepares to shoot another bullet at them, infecting them all. However, Kawamatsu calls from the sacred prison cell, which the other guards were told had a dangerous beast inside. Babanuki explains that the cell actually contained a member of the 9 Red Scabbards. When Kawamatsu was captured 13 years ago, Orochi sentenced him to be executed by feeding him poisoned fish. However, Kawamatsu never did die from eating the fish, so he has stayed alive in the cell ever since. Babanuki orders the guards to kill him. Kikunojo prepares to fight the guards off to save him, but Kawamatsu manages to fight them off by spitting sharp fish bones at their necks. Raizo sneaks through the executive tower in search of Kawamatsu's sword and keys to his cuffs. He finds them, but is caught by Solitaire, whose spider smile fruit allows her to use 6 swords. However, Raizo uses his jujutsu to create shadow forms of himself. Solitaire fought off the clones, allowing the real Raizo to get away. In his cell, Kawamatsu fights off the guards attempting to kill him by spitting fish bones. Just then, Raizo jumps out the tower window and passes the key and sword to him. He unlocks his cuffs and uses his unique sword fighting style, the Kappa style. The prisoners immediately recognize them as the 9 Red Scabbards and are shocked to see that they are still alive after 20 years. Babanuki orders his men to attack them, but they are easily fought off. Then they start firing excite bullets at the prisoners, infecting many of them. Zoro and Hiyori walk through a leafy forest but are followed by a mysterious flute player. Suddenly the man shoots a blow dart at them. Zoro detects and hits the dart with his sword, then fights off the assailant. They believe he is Fukurokuju's assassin. Queen's ship takes Big Mom to Onigashima. Despite the tranquilizer shots, Big Mom wakes up briefly, asking for red bean soup, then falls back asleep. Back at Udon, Kid attempts to get out of his cuffs. Raizo throws them the keys, but Kid, only having one hand, asks Killer to help him unlock the cuffs. However, Killer just lies on the floor, laughing. Babanuki's men continue firing excite bullets at the prisoners. The bullet wounds form black skull marks, spreading green blotches all over the body. Prisoners affected suffer excruciating, burning pain, fever, and bleeding, and eventually become emaciated and zombie-like. The infected also touch the healthy prisoners, infecting them as well. Babanuki dubs the chemical weapon Queen's masterpiece, the mummy virus. The infected prisoners blame the 9 Red Scabbards, as well as Luffy, for putting them through the ordeal by rebelling. In response to this, Luffy hugs the infected prisoners, contracting the virus himself. Luffy calls out the weak-spirited prisoners for simply accepting the abuse from the Beast Pirates, then states he has a promise to fulfill, to make Wano Country a place where the people never hunger again. He prompts the prisoners to either join him and liberate the country, or continue to live a life of despair under Kaido's regime. Babanuki decides to try to kill all the prisoners at once, using an excite shot, a cannonball containing 200 doses of the mummy virus. He places it in his elephant's trunk to fire, but Luffy walks up to him and ties a knot in the elephant's trunk. With the cannonball still inside, it detonates in Babanuki's body, knocking him out. With the last of his strength, Luffy orders his new followers to take out the Vice Wardens. Following his orders, the prisoners turn on and defeat Daifugo and Solitaire. 8 days before the Onigashima raid, Luffy scores his first victory, liberating Udon's prisoner mine. Killer uses the keys and unlocks Kid's handcuffs. Kid goes to see Luffy, who lies on the ground. Luffy invites Kid into the alliance, but Kid refuses. He uses his devil fruit power to create an arm out of magnetic parts, then breaks the prison gate. He and Killer leave. Doji takes Kinemon and Inuarashi to a graveyard with several tombstones. Doji explains what had happened. 10 years after Odin's death, Doji's men have grown impatient for the 9 Red Scabbards to return. Not wanting to wait another 10 years, they beg him to allow them to leave right away and take on Kaido at Onigashima. Doji objected to this, stating that they would be completely powerless against Kaido, so their deaths would be for nothing. One of the men explained the meaning of the word Tsunaki. It was an abbreviation of the sentence, Namae o Sutero, Chie o Sutero, throw away your name and your wits. The phrase suggesting not worrying about the dangers and throwing themselves forward for their cause. Against Doji's command, they sailed out to Onigashima. As he warned, the soldiers were decimated by Kaido's crew and died in vain, after which they were buried at the graveyard. Back at present day, Doji and his men decide to join Kinemon's alliance to take down Kaido. Back at Udon, the prisoners start doubting Luffy for being a pirate like Kaido. They also doubt the prophecy, and that the 9 Red Scabbards truly returned from the past. Momonosuke hides with Luffy, who is resting in a cell while Chopper prepares a cure. Although Momonosuke is hesitant to appear in front of them, Luffy throws a boulder at him to chase him out into the open. Momonosuke is spotted by the prisoners and immediately recognized. The prisoners bow down to him, and Momonosuke gives a speech calling them to help fight against Kaido. Now convinced that the 9 red scabbards truly have returned, they join the cause to liberate Wano country and take down Orochi. Zoro and Hiyori are ambushed by Fukurokuju's group of ninjas. Although Zoro defeats most of the ninjas without difficulty, a stronger ninja, Fujin, stands in his way. Still, Zoro cuts down Fujin unharmed. He and Hiyori seek shelter at a house, where he plans to get the Shusui back to prepare for the Onigashima raid. Orochi berates Fukurokuju for allowing Zoro to get away. To appease him, Fukurokuju states that he managed to capture another criminal, Law, who was brutally tortured and chained to a wall. They set up wanted posters of all of the Straw Hats and their allies. Sanji and Shinobu find that they are both wanted in the entire country. They decide to sit on a rooftop where they plan their next moves. Now that most of their work in the Flower Capital is done, they decide that the next step would be to free the samurai allies who have been imprisoned by Orochi's guards. Sanji observes people creating skyships, lantern-like balloons that are released into the sky during the fire festival. Back at Udon, Chopper finally creates a cure for the mummy virus. Luffy is cured first, then the other prisoners are also. Nami runs through the capital to find Bippo in the streets. Bippo shows her the rebellion flyer, where Yasui added 2 lines to the snake to change the rendezvous point. After Nami leaves, Bippo reveals what happened to Law. In exchange for Bippo's freedom, Law turned himself in to be arrested. After being beaten, Hawkins and Drake chained him to a wall and tortured him for information. Kanjuro visits Ebisu town where he receives permission to bury Yasui's body in Kuri. Kanjuro remembers Yasui's sacrifice. Yasui gave up his life to save Kinemon's plans of liberation. He decides to bury his body on the grounds of Odin's grave. Meanwhile, Robin, Usopp, and Brook find out they are wanted throughout the entire country. Security checkpoints are set up, and officers check all passing people to make sure they are not the fugitives. To get past the security checkpoint, Robin and Usopp make face faults. They then sail down a river to Kuri. The rebels prepare for the upcoming Onigashima raid. At Kuri, Kinemon is shocked to see that Ashura has gathered ships to transport the rebels in the raid. Meanwhile, Luffy keeps trying to master Riwo by breaking rocks, but struggles. He also spars against Hyogoro, but is knocked back. In Ringo, Zoro confronts the sword thief of Oihagi Bridge. They quickly enter battle and Zoro gets the upper hand. The thief refuses to return the sword because it belonged to the great samurai Ryuma. They continue fighting, but the battle is broken up by Kawamatsu. The thief and Hiyori both recognize him and are shocked to see him. At Onigashima, Big Mom is taken to Kaido's mansion, where Kaido orders his men to remove her handcuffs. After this, they immediately begin to battle. Kaido and Big Mom continue their clash. Queen, afraid of the battle, looks for excuses to leave Onigashima. He receives a call from Babanuki, who tells him that his situation is okay. In reality, Babanuki has been Tama, who fed him a kibi dango after he was defeated. The prisoners, fully recovered from the mummy virus, praise Chopper for curing them and agreeing to fight for the rebellion. Surprisingly, Luffy is met with 4 Yakuza leaders who once ruled a region of Wano. Omasa of Udon, Tsunagoro of Hakumai, Cho of Ringo, and Yatape of Kibi are all willing to join Luffy's alliance. Meanwhile, in Kibi, Kinemon finds out that Ashura has acquired the blueprints for Kaido's mansion. He receives news from Raizo that they have amassed an army of 3,500 men. The only remaining problem is that they do not have a supply of weapons for them, as possession of weapons was forbidden in the country. At Oihagi Bridge, Hiyori cries at the sight of Kawamatsu. She apologizes for abandoning him. Several years ago, Hiyori felt guilty that Kawamatsu was starving himself to feed her, so she ran away while he was asleep. When Kawamatsu woke up, he searched the Flower Capital for her, but to no avail. Basak at present day, he forgives her for running away, happy that she is alive. Suddenly, Jukimaru is ambushed by a group of bandits and is shot with a magnum. The bandits, angry that their weapons were stolen, attack them all in vengeance. Zoro and Kawamatsu fight them all off. Crying and wounded, Jukimaru decides to run away. Zoro chases Jukimaru, but he goes into a rundown doorway and disappears. Hiyori and Kawamatsu decide to walk together, but are attacked by another wave of bandits. Kawamatsu fights them off and explains what happened after he lost Hiyori. 13 years ago, after Hiyori ran away, he decided to leave to Ringo. Ringo was a region that was previously ruled by the daimyo Shimotsuki Ushimaru, who was with the company of a fox, Onimaru. However, when Orochi overthrew Odin, Ushimaru was killed and Ringo fell. Kawamatsu found a mass burial site with eternal graves. These corpses were buried in caskets and did not decompose due to the cold. They were marked by the deceased person's sword, which was said to contain the soul of the deceased. These swords became attractive to grave robbers, but the graveyard was guarded by the fox, Onimaru. Onimaru was initially hostile to Kawamatsu, but eventually warmed up to him. However, he became hostile again after he saw Kawamatsu taking the swords from the graves. Kawamatsu explained that the swords were to be used for the upcoming Onigashima raid. Given that the samurai and the swords will help their wielders in battle, Onimaru allowed him, helping him gather the other swords. Together, they would build a hideout to keep the swords, steal food from the capital to keep themselves fed, and fight off any grave robbers, taking their swords. Unfortunately, when Kawamatsu attempted to steal tofu one day, he fell into a trap and was arrested, being sent to the Udon prisoner mine. Back in present day, Kawamatsu goes to the place where Jukimaru disappeared, and finds that it is the location where the swords were located. He contacts Kinemon and tells him that he has the supply of swords needed for the army. It is revealed that Jukimaru was the one who arranged the swords while Kawamatsu was gone, as he was actually Onimaru in his human form. He transforms back into his fox form and leaves, his duty fulfilled. Zoro tries to take back Shusui, but Hiyori asks him to leave it. Hiyori offers him a replacement sword, the Enma. This sword belonged to Oden himself and is the only sword to have ever successfully injured Kaido. Hiyori explains that the Shusui is the sacred national treasure of Wano country, and that when it was stolen by Moria, the country was devastated. Zoro agrees to leave the Shusui behind in exchange for the Enma, and on the condition that he would be allowed to visit Ryuma's grave. At Rasetsu prison, Law manages to overpower Hawkins and cut him in half. Hawkins explains that he formed an alliance with Kid and Scratchman Apu. However, Apu was allied with Kaido all along, and when he met face-to-face with Kaido, Hawkins immediately submitted to him. However, Kid refused to join Kaido, was defeated, and was sent to the Udon prisoner mine. Finishing the story, Law cuts Hawkins down and walks free from the prison. At Uden, Luffy keeps training and attempt to learn Ryuo. The Yakuza leaders break into different groups to prepare. Hyogoro prepares the weapons. Cho transports the swords to the rendezvous point. Yatape leads the command unit, and Frankie's group work to maintain the ships. Kinemon explains the change in the rebellion flyer. The original snake symbol implied Habu Port in Hakumai, but with the two added strokes, the snake resembles a lizard, implying Tokuj Port in Udon. Kinemon explains the situation, stating that they have located 7 out of 9 of the 9 red scabbards, still not being able to track down Denjiro. Scratchman Apu arrives in Wano country. He passes through the waterfall and goes through a hidden tunnel. He then goes up a gondola, leading him up to Hakumai. Apu brings the monster-like numbers, scaring the witnesses. They call Kaido at Onigashima, who has gotten past his differences with Big Mom. He declares a temporary alliance between the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates. Kawamatsu confirms to the 9 red scabbards that Hiyori was indeed alive. Then, Tama's grandfather, Tenguyama Hitetsu, gets back the sword that Luffy took from his house. Then, he takes out the Enma, the sword promised by Hiyori, which is granted to Zoro. Zoro tries out his new sword on a tree, but the sword ends up drawing more Ryuo than necessary, creating an overly powerful slash cutting off a piece of the cliff. Hitetsu explains that the Enma is considered impossible to wield because it always uses excessive amounts of the wielder's Ryuo. Still, Zoro still trains with the Enma on some bamboo stalks. Kinemon then plans out the battle. Despite having 4,000 men, they are still greatly outnumbered by Orochi and Kaido's troops of about 30,000 people. Luffy keeps attempting to learn Ryuo by pounding sheets of metal, but still struggles. Chopper decides that it is time to leave, so Luffy rides on Chopper's back to Kinemon's group. Just then, Kinemon receives a call from the Yakuza leaders that they have amassed a total of 400 people to fight in the Onigashima raid. One day remains before the raid, and Kinemon's group leaves to go to the port early. The Straw Hats stay behind by Yasui and Pedro's graves. Hitetsu seems amazed that Zoro is managing to tame the Enma. He reveals that the reason Zoro can use the sword is because the Wado Ichimonji and Enma were created by the same person, Shimotsuki Kozaburo. Zoro states that he will turn Enma into a black blade. Back at Udon, Babanuki calls Orochi and lies to him, stating that there was no trouble at Udon and the situation is under control. However, Orochi somehow reveals that he has the new information about the rendezvous point change and that Hiyori was alive. Luffy finally masters Ryuo by blasting a tree, and the curtains close on Wano Country Arc's second act. The levee has come to an end, and the royal parties attending it have returned to their home countries. Neptune's family returns to Fishman Island accompanied by Garp, where he laments the tense and violent arguments that occurred during the Levely. However, Garp brings up a certain incident that occurred concerning Arabasta. Previously, news of the incident were spread by Morgans, head of the World Economy newspaper. Morgans was threatened by a Cypher Paul agent to keep the incident private, but Morgans refuses, beating the agent. However, he receives a call from Wapol of the Black Drum Kingdom. The news reached the officers of the Revolutionary Army at Kamabaka Kingdom, devastating the officers. Meanwhile, Kobe, who is on a Marine ship, calls ex-Drake in private, revealing that Drake was allied with the Marines all along, leading the Special Force Sword. To Kobe's shock, Drake informs him that Kaido and Big Mom have formed an alliance, and Cypher Paul agents have entered Wano country. The final great revelation is revealed. During the Levely, the delegates have decided to abolish the 7 warlords of the sea system. The 7 warlords were 7 officially recognized pirates, but several members have lost this title. Crocodile, Moria, Doflamingo, and Law were all stripped of the title for committing heinous actions, and Jinbei and Teach declared their resignation from the system. During the Levely, Kings Nefertari Cobra and Riku Doldo III, 2 powerful monarchs whose countries have been damaged by warlords, advocated for the abolition of the system. This motion won the majority, and the warlords were officially disbanded. The former warlords are now fugitive pirates and are being pursued by the Marines. Buggy, Edward Weevil, Dracule Mihawk, and Boa Hancock are surrounded by Marine soldiers, their legal immunity being revoked. The former warlords prepare to battle the Marines, Ekpet for Buggy, who plans to flee while his underlings keep the Marine busy. At the new Marine headquarters, Fleet Admiral Sakazuki discusses the 7 warlords' dissolution with Fujitora. Although Sakazuki expresses disagreement with the choice, he decides he cannot change the decision. When discussing Kaido's situation in Wano country, they end up mentioning a certain Rocks. The other Marine officers hold a meeting and the name Rocks also comes up. Sengoku decides to tell the story of the Rocks Pirates. The Rocks Pirates were a group of extremely violent pirates who even fought each other on board the ship. Among the crew were some of the most dangerous pirates today, including Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and Shiki. However, 38 years ago, in what would be known as the God Valley Incident, Garp joined forces with the Roger Pirates and defeated the Rocks Pirates, protecting endangered world nobles. Since the incident, the world government attempted to remove all traces of the incident, erasing Rock's name from history and removing the island of God Valley from all maps. Strangely, both Roger and Rocks have the mysterious initial D in their name. Brand New announces the new bounties of the 4 emperors, Teach, Shanks, Big Mom, and Kaido, all of which have bounties in the billions. Just then, Sakazuki enters, stating that the Marines will not intervene in Wano country due to a lack of resources. Before Sengoku leaves, he mentions Odin, revealing Odin was a member of the Roger Pirates. 25 years ago, the Roger Pirates had a drunken feast at their ship. Kozuki Odin expressed his appreciation for being able to join Goldie Roger on his voyage. Silvers, Rayleigh, Shanks, and Buggy offered to help him in his quest to open Wano country's borders, but Odin replied that he should handle this alone. He was confident that with the help of his retainers, he could become shogun and accomplish his goal. In the present day, Act 3 of the Wano country arc begins. In Port Habu in Hakumai, Orochi boards a ship headed for the fire festival in Onigashima. He drinks heavily in celebration. The people in the flower capital also celebrate passionately. Meanwhile, at the rendezvous point, Tokaj Port, Momonosuke and the Scabbards find out that not only it is storming heavily, but their ships and allies are nowhere to be seen, and Kinemon desperately tries calling their allies on the Tanishi. However, he cannot reach any of them, and his pleas quickly become desperate before Ashura Doji silences him. Rewinding back to 2 days before the fire festival, the Alliance members move to conclude their preparations and head for Port Tokaj. After overseeing the completion of the ship restoration in Port Itachi, Frankie and Usopp headed to Amigasa village to reunite with their crew, leaving the ships in the care of the musketeers and Wano carpenters. In the prisoner mine, Hyogoro oversaw the prisoners collecting all the weapons they could find, while Cho acquired the weapons stored in Ringo. Jibuemon talked with some allies about making sure they all moved to Port Tokaj discreetly, and they agreed even though Orochi and many of his officials would have already left for Onigashima. In Amigasa village, Hitetsu gave the Straw Hat some Kabuto armor, and Luffy, Chopper, and Brook were excited to don it. Sanji asks Zoro why he does not want to wear the armor, to which he replies the armor will slow him down. Then he finally taunts Zoro with his higher bounty, causing Zoro to unleash Enma. Both of them had a fight before getting whacked by Nami. Eventually, Nami and Robin discussed with Carrot, Wanda, Shishilian, Consolate, and Giovanni about the full moon that would be present during the final battle, and they hoped that the Minks could use Sulong, and that Nekomamushi and the Guardians would arrive on time. Luffy looked out toward the ocean, noting that Jinbei had not yet arrived despite Big Mom being here. After finding out what had happened with Jinbei, Zoro assured Luffy that the Fishman would come if he was still alive. In Okobor Town, however, the citizens were confronted by Huludum, who revealed that the Paradise Farm was still being stolen from, despite him burning down the Mount Adama thieves' hideout. The citizens deduced that the 9 red scabbards had likely stolen the food if the reports of their return were accurate, though decided to not say a word about it. Tsuru then came and told Huludum that she would guide him to the food, as she wanted to help her husband Kinemon and the Kazuki family's plan. However, the other citizens stopped her by claiming aloud that they had eaten the stolen food, shocking her and angering Huludum. Back again, in the present at Tokaj Port, as the scabbards start to lose hope of their allies showing up, Inuarashi finds a boat that looks intact and prepares to sail out to Onigashima alone. Momonosuke says that they should change the date of their rendezvous, and Shinobu attempts to stop Kinemon and the rest of the scabbards from going towards Onigashima. However, Kinemon declines. On Onigashima, Orochi parties as he thinks about an incident that occurred the previous day. The day before, Orochi decided to sabotage the operation before it could happen. He bombed the Thousand Sunny as well as all bridges leading to the port. He also destroys the port itself. The 9 red scabbards decide that they must sail out to Onigashima, with or without their allies. They prepare to go. They remember Odin's legacy. A delinquent from a young age, Odin committed several atrocious acts, such as starting what would be known as the Harem War, where he clashed with several other samurai whose women he stole. When he turned 18, he was disavowed from his father. The future 9 red scabbards also steal to survive. Kinemon attempts to steal a baby boar, and Denjiro swindles a merchant for a pot. However, the baby boar's parent, a giant dubbed the Mountain God, goes on a rampage around town in search of its child. Odin intervenes, asking Kinemon for the boar back. Upon hearing that the Mountain God swallowed Tsurujo, Kinemon decides to battle it head-on. Despite having stabbed the beast, Kinemon is knocked back into the ground and defeated. Odin then appears and uses his sword, slicing the beast cleanly in half. Although there were no casualties from the incident, a quarter of the town was destroyed by the Mountain God. Odin is blamed for the incident, and he receives the notice of disavowal from his father, exiling him from the capital. Kinemon and Denjiro decide to follow and serve him. Odin stays at Hakumai and meets the region's daimyo, Yasuye, and his servant Orochi. He ends up destroying the room he stays in, steals money from the safe, and then leaves to travel around the country. He plans to end up at Kuri, the country's lawless region, where he would restore order to the region. He would find followers during his journeys. He met young siblings Izu and Kikunojo in Ringo, Kanjuro in Kibi, and mountain bandit Raizo in Udon. However, while in Kuri, he would come face to face with bandit Ashura Doji and start a battle. Odin met with Ashura Doji, the bandit leader of the lawless part of town, Kuri. They quickly got into a sword fight, which appeared to be at a standstill. However, by the time Odin's followers came to his aid, he had already emerged victorious and defeated Ashura. Odin would take him in as one of his followers. After liberating Kuri from Ashura, Odin would start building structures and towns in the area, turning what was once an uncivilized, rough terrain into an officially recognized province of Wano country, with Odin as its first daimyo and his followers as his official retainers. Sukiyaki repealed his disavowal and accepted him as his son again. The Kazuki family also formed an alliance with the Mink tribe. Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, and Kawamatsu washed ashore as children, but the people, mistaking them for monsters, attempted to burn them at the stake. Odin arrived just in time to rescue them. After welcoming them into his palace and feeding them Odin stew, they explained that their ship sunk and they washed ashore. Odin accepted them into the country, and they became Odin's loyal retainers like the others. Odin's followers then raided Hakumai and attempted to steal money from Yasui, but they were all captured and brought to the daimyo. Surprisingly, Yasui allows them to keep the money they stole, and also faithfully gave his own savings. Odin and his followers then used the money to pay for books and education, learned proper manners, and trained to become strong warriors. Although they originally gained a reputation of being ruffians, they eventually became respected, high-class individuals. The God Valley incident occurred, leading to the defeat and dissolution of the Rock's pirates. Although their captain was killed, the crew split up and formed their own pirate crews. Among these powerful pirates was Edward Newgate, who became known as Whitebeard. After their ship sunk, they washed ashore onto the beaches of Wano country. Odin went to the shore and instantly started a battle with Whitebeard, but was instantly defeated. Odin asked Whitebeard to let him join his crew, but he refuses, stating that he was not a loyal person and would therefore not be good at serving someone else. Kinemon was also opposed to Odin setting sail, because he had his duties as a daimyo. 2 weeks passed and Whitebeard's men finished repairing his ship, the Moby Dick. Whitebeard decided to set sail at night to prevent Odin from joining, but Odin snuck out and nevertheless attempted to board the ship. He held onto a chain tied to the ship's mast and was carried along with the ship. Izu pursued Odin and held onto him, trying to prevent him from setting sail. Marco rescued Izu from the water and carried him on board. Odin, however, was not rescued and was dragged through the rough waters, crashing into rocks along the way. Whitebeard promised Odin that he would be allowed into the crew if he held onto the chain for 3 days. Odin accepted the challenge as he rode down the waterfall, got eaten by a fish, and was dragged through icy waters. 3 days passed and 1 hour remained. Odin held onto the chain strongly, but his body was greatly swollen from water collision. However, he heard the screams of a woman being harassed on a nearby island, Amatsuki Toki. Odin let go of the chain, swam to the island, and scared off the miscreants. Toki took care of Odin as he recovered from his swelling. Toki explained that she dreamed of going to Wano country. However, the next day they are confronted by the thugs from earlier, the Takatopus pirates led by their captain Karma. However, Whitebeard suddenly appeared and knocked out Karma with a single hit. The other thugs were scared off at the sight of an emperor. Since Odin gave up his ambition to save a woman, Whitebeard allowed Odin onto his ship. Izu, Toki, Inuarashi, and Nekomamushi were also accepted in. Odin would prove to be one of the most violently powerful members of the crew, as he sunk an enemy ship before his crew got the chance to plunder it. Traveling across several distant lands, he recorded all his adventures in his journal. Odin got close with Toki, who explained that her parents were born in Wano country, so she wanted to visit the country. Eventually, during Odin's second year in the crew, they had a child and named him Momonosuke. He became a wanted pirate overseas, and when Whitebeard decided to segment his crew into divisions, Odin became the commander of the second division. Back at Wano country, the shogun Sukiyaki falls critically ill and had to select an heir. Since Odin was absent, he decided to appoint Kurozumi Orochi as his proxy. Meanwhile, the Roger pirates were informed about a new samurai from Wano working under Whitebeard. Roger decided that he wanted to meet the samurai himself. Orochi became Odin's proxy as he was at sea, but the other daimyos suspected him because he was a member of the Kurozumi family. Orochi's past is revealed. In his childhood, he and his family became hunted because of what his grandfather did. Orochi hid away in the forest and found a desolate cabin. Inside, there was an old man and woman, Semimaru and Higurashi. Higurashi explained the truth about Orochi's grandfather. Since the Kozuki shogun was infertile, daimyos from the Shimotsuki, Kurozumi, Uzuki, Amatsuki, and Fugetsu families all fought to be the next heir. Orochi's grandfather attempted to take over by assassinating the other daimyos, but the Kozuki shogun finally managed to give birth to an heir, Sukiyaki. The assassination plot was exposed. Orochi's grandfather committed suicide, and the people grew to despise the Kurozumi name. Orochi deduced that all his miseries stemmed from Sukiyaki's being born, and that he would have become shogun if Sukiyaki was not born. Higurashi revealed she was also a member of the Kurozumi family, and that she had the power to transform into other people. She gave Orochi a devil fruit, allowing him to transform into an 8-headed serpent. Orochi plotted to usurp the throne. Orochi needed to collect funding to buy weapons. He stole money from Yasui while working undercover as a servant and asked Odin for loans without paying him back. Higurashi then disguised herself as Odin to convince the shogun to let Orochi into the palace, where he became the shogun's faithful servant. Years later, Higurashi disguised herself as Sukiyaki, pretended to fall ill, and spread news that Sukiyaki died of the illness, allowing Orochi to rise to power. Overseas, Odin reached his 4th year under the Whitebeard pirates, giving birth to another child, Hiyori. They approached an island being plundered by Gold Roger. Odin picked a fight with Roger and was defeated, but Whitebeard appeared and they began to clash. And their crews also started battling each other. The battle lasted for a total of 3 days, after which a ceasefire ended the battle. A gift exchange was carried out on the 4th day, and Shanks and Buggy appeared frightened by Teach, who had allegedly never slept in his life. Roger meets with Whitebeard and Odin. amazed that Odin could read a poneglyph. Roger originally thought that he had reached the end of the Grand Line on Lodestar Island, but since his log pose stopped working on the island, he deduced that there was a final island after that. He heard that the location of the final island was written in the poneglyphs. Roger asked to borrow Odin for a year to reach the final island. Whitebeard originally refused, but Odin agreed, determined to find the final island of the Grand Line. He decided to part ways with Whitebeard and join the Roger pirates with Toki and his baby children. Izu stayed with Whitebeard while Inuarashi and Nekomamushi snuck on board Roger's ship as stowaways. The Roger pirates stopped at Jaya, and Odin stole food from the stores, unaware that it was a lawless town filled with violent criminals. The townspeople retaliated against Odin and blew him up with a grenade, but Odin managed to fight them off. At the end of the day, Odin used the stolen ingredients to make Odin stew for his crew, who enjoyed the dish. Roger contracted a terminal illness and knew he had under a year to live. Still, his crew kept going with their adventures, merrily singing Bink's sake along the way to a sky island. The Roger pirates went up a knock-up stream, entered Skypiea, and found the ancient golden city of Shandora. There they found its national treasure, the Belfry Bell, as well as a poneglyph. The poneglyph told of a certain weapon called Poseidon located in Fishman Island. They decided not to steal the bell, but left behind a carved message stating that Roger had reached a sky island. They continued on their travels and left Skypiea, using an octopus balloon to get the ship down safely. There was a road poneglyph in both Zu and Wano country, and Roger had already gotten a copy of another poneglyph belonging to Big Mom, so the Roger pirates had already located 3 of the 4 poneglyphs needed to find the final island. They set sail for Water 7, where they suspected the remaining poneglyph is located, where they met Tom, their ship's creator. They continued their adventure to the Red Line, finding the Sabaody archipelago and under the sea, Fishman Island. Its king, Neptune, explains that the weapon Poseidon is a certain mermaid born every several hundred years with the ability to control sea kings. Shiarli, the kingdom's fortune teller, states that this mermaid would be born in 10 years. Roger decided to continue on his journey, his crew still cheerfully singing Bink's sake. Odin's adventure with the Roger pirates led him back to his homeland, Wano country, since there was a road poneglyph there. However, Toki fell ill from the fatigue from several years of adventure with Odin, so Odin was forced to leave her and the children in Wano. Inuarashi and Nekomamushi also decided to stay behind. Odin was also willing to stay, but Toki insisted that Odin sail with the Roger pirates. As he set sail once again, he noticed a slight change in Wano country. Meanwhile, Orochi and Higurashi expressed disappointment that the Kozuki family now had a viable heir after Odin. The Roger pirates traveled to Zu, where the last remaining road poneglyph was located. They were greeted by its duke, Hitsugisu-kan, who was thankful that Inuarashi and Nekomamushi were both alive. A young Pedro also asked to join the pirate crew. Roger denied him due to his age, but stated that his time would come. The Roger pirates now had all the information they needed to find the final island, but Buggy fell ill with a high fever just before the trip. He and Shanks had to stay behind while the others left. Before Roger left, he gave Shanks his iconic straw hat. News spread across the world that the Roger pirates successfully conquered the entire Grand Line, being the first pirate king in history. Finding the island, Roger thanked a certain Joy Boy who left him the treasure. Roger gave the island untouched for centuries the name Laughtail. Roger became the first ever pirate king, after which he went back to the island to pick up Shanks and Buggy. However, he knew that his days were ending as he was dying from a terminal illness. The Marines, including Garp, as well as other pirates, started fighting more aggressively to take Roger down, so he decided to disband his crew. He recalls his times in Fishman Island, where he heard voices from the sea creatures saying that there will be a new king succeeding Roger. He decided to leave his crew behind at an island, where his first mate Rayleigh took the ship to take the other crew members home. Rayleigh first took Odin back to Wano country. Odin reunited with his wife and children, and the citizens were happy to see him return. He had become a celebrity since his wife helped the town after she recovered. Odin also met his retainers, except for Ashura and Denjiro. Ashura had returned to being a mountain bandit, and Denjiro wandered around the country borrowing money. Kinemon revealed what happened to the country while Odin was gone. Since Sukiyaki died of an illness, Orochi became the temporary shogun. Backed up by a powerful pirate, Kaido, Orochi had almost absolute power and built several weapons factories operated with slavery. After a family was executed by Orochi, the 9 Red Scabbards protested the cruelty by going to Orochi's palace. However, while they were away, Kaido's men invaded Kinemon's palace and attempted to kill Momonosuke. Although the enemies were fought off, Toki was shot in the leg with an arrow protecting his child. Angry that his family was threatened and hurt by Orochi, Oden decides to confront him. He tells the others to watch over Kuri while he is gone. Against the advice of his retainers, Oden decided to go to the flower capital to confront Orochi. Oden broke into the palace and attempted to attack him, but Semimaru used his devil fruit ability to create a barrier protecting Orochi. Higurashi, who was nearby, revealed that she too had a devil fruit ability, which allowed her to disguise herself as Sukiyaki and hand the throne to Orochi. The real Sukiyaki never intended to give the throne to Orochi, and did not die from illness like how the news said he did. Citizens outside cheered on Oden to save the country, but they were struck with poisoned arrows that rained down from the sky. Oden reclaimed the throne, but every week he stripped down naked in the courtyard and danced like a fool, singing about Oden's stew. For this weird behavior, the citizens started believing him to be a fool and stopped respecting him. The children also made fun of him. Oden did not mind the ridicule, but found in the newspaper that Roger had been executed. Overseas, Whitebeard also receives the news, reflecting on the last time they met, where Roger told him all about the mysterious Will of D. Previously, Roger was taken to his birthplace, Logetown, to be executed by impalement. Doflamingo, Buggy, Shanks, Mihawk, Crocodile, Moria, and Dragon all witnessed the event. In his last moments, one person asked Roger where his treasure was. As his final words, Roger said that he hid the treasure for others to find. The executioners impaled Roger, ending the life of the first ever pirate king. Oden went to the beach to mourn. Because Roger told his crew not to cry for him, Oden laughed in tears to mourn his death. 5 years passed since Oden's return to Wano country, and nothing much had changed. He had garnered a reputation of being the silly lord for his naked dances, but the other daimyos and his retainers supported him unconditionally. However, Orochi made his move. He wanted to start building weapon factories in Kuri to transform the country into the leader of the weapons industry. Orochi captured Hyogoro, who refused to serve him, and sent him to prison. Those who attempted to aid Hyogoro, including his wife, were shot. Upon hearing the news, Oden decided that Orochi had become a great threat and must be stopped. Because of their unwavering loyalty to the country, Oden's retainers were named the 9 Red Scabbards. Kaido's men were strangely prepared for the attack, almost as if there was a spy within Oden's retainers. The 9 Red Scabbards faced off against hundreds of the beast pirates as well as Kaido himself in his dragon form. Kaido revealed that the promises Orochi made to Oden were entirely a lie. The battle begins, and despite being greatly outnumbered, the 9 Red Scabbards started strong fighting off the beast's pirates. While Oden's men faced off, Toki watched over Momonosuke and Hiyori back in Kuri, pressured by Yasui to keep them safe at all costs. To the disappointment of Kaido, King and Queen, Oden and his retainers fought strongly against Kaido's men, even having Shinobu join them. Kaido decided to intervene personally with his Bolo Breath attack, but Oden remained unharmed by the attack. The two fought each other one-on-one while Oden's retainers battled King and Queen. Kaido got the upper hand, knocking Oden into the fiery ground below. Oden got up, ready to face him again. He coated his swords with Ryuo and leaps toward Kaido. Although Kaido's flames nearly knock him back down, through sheer willpower he braves the flames and slashes into Kaido's body, being the first person to ever cut Kaido. He prepares to finish off Kaido while he is in his human form. However, Higurashi disguised herself as Momonosuke, while a beast's pirate held her at knife point. This distracted Oden just enough for Kaido to critically wound him off guard. Ashura and Kinemon attempted to aid him, but were defeated by King and Queen. Oden collapsed, earning victory for the beast's pirates. The fires set during the battle raged through the Udon forest for 5 days, until the rain finally put it out. Oden and the 9 Red Scabbards were all jailed in the flower capital, with only Shinobu being spared. Previously, Oden denied allegiance to her so that she would not be arrested with the others. Eventually, the 9 Red Scabbards' verdict was released, and they would be executed by boiling in 3 days. 3 days passed and the day of the execution arrived. The public event became a big spectacle since execution by boiling was rare. As Oden walks the plank into the pot, one of the executioners slipped on oil, fell into the pot, and suffered an excruciating death. Just before Oden entered the pot, he suggested a wager to Orochi. If he and his retainers could survive a set amount of time in the pot, they would be set free. Although Orochi initially scoffed at Oden's suggestion, Kaido accepted the challenge, agreeing to release the retainers if they survived 1 hour in the pot. Oden entered the pot, already being singed by the boiling oil. The other retainers run on the plank to also get in, but Odin lifts the plank up, allowing his retainers to sit safe from the boiling oil. Kaido allowed him to do this since they were technically in the pot. Less than a minute passed, and Odin already struggled to lift the plank. It forced Odin to stand on the bottom of the pot, and his veins burst from the pressure. Shinobu watched the event from the sidelines and attacked a man who called Odin a silly lord. She publicly called out the oppressive Shogun Orochi. While in the pot, Odin reflected on what Orochi told him back at the palace. Orochi revealed that he held an immense hatred for Wano country for humiliating his family. Since his grandfather's assassination plans were exposed and he committed seppuku, the remaining members of the Kurozumi family were hunted down, beaten and killed by the other people. He intended to destroy the country through his oppressive regime as an act of vengeance for his family's life of suffering. Shinobu reveals more, as she was hiding in the ceiling when it happened. Orochi kidnapped hundreds of citizens meant as tributes to Kaido. At that point, Orochi offered Odin a bargain. Orochi would cease the kidnappings, and he and Kaido would leave Wano country after 5 years. In exchange, Odin had to dance naked in the flower capital every week while being humiliated by Orochi. Odin decided he had no choice as he had no chance against Kaido. Shinobu finishes her story, stating that Odin's naked dances were in an effort to release the kidnapped citizens. Although he was not appreciated then, the citizens witnessing the execution were touched by Odin's sacrifices. The truth about Odin's sacrifices are revealed to the public, and feeling bad for mocking him over the years, they rush to the execution site to cheer him on, hoping for his survival. However, Odin knows that he will not survive the execution, so he tells his retainers to open up the country in his name. Meanwhile, Fukurokuju confronts Shinobu for telling everyone the truth, but Shinobu denounces the Orochi Oniwabanshu and pledges loyalty to the 9 red scabbards. 30 minutes passed and Odin still stood strong, so Orochi ordered his men to further increase the temperature. 10 minutes remained and Orochi became increasingly frustrated that Odin had not yet died. Through pure willpower, Odin pushed through the final 10 minutes and completed the challenge. Despite this, Orochi decided to break his promises, and the firing squad pointed their guns on Odin anyway. After telling his retainers to open up the country for him, he threw the plank away from the execution area, allowing his retainers to flee to Kuri. They remembered their happy times with Odin as they tearfully ran away. Kaido mentioned that he killed Higurashi, but then took out his pistol and shot Odin in the head. His final words, "Odin wouldn't be Odin," was cut off, but the townspeople completed his sentence with, "if it wasn't boiled." News of Odin's death spread to Toki, who reflected on her final moments with Odin. Before he left to confront Kaido, Odin entrusted Toki with a scroll to be opened if he died in the battle. The scroll prophesied that in 20 years, someone would arrive to save Wano country. Pursued by beast pirates, the 9 red scabbards ran through the forest to escape back to Odin's castle. Ashura and Denjiro were forced to stay behind to battle the beast pirates. Kaido's men fired flaming arrows at Odin's castle, setting it ablaze with Toki, Momonosuke, and Hiyori still inside. Momonosuke reflected on his time with Odin. As the Roger pirates floated down from Skypiea, they got a view of the ocean from above. Hiyori also remembered when Odin listened to her playing the shamisen. Hiyori learned the song Moon Princess. Odin joked that the song should be played at his funeral, frightening Hiyori. Kaido entered the castle looking to kill Momonosuke. He confronted Momonosuke, but since he was too cowardly to cooperate, he lost interest, leaving him to die in the mansion. He transforms into his dragon form and leaves. Most of the 9 red scabbards made it to the castle, except for Ashura and Denjiro. Toki transported the 9 red scabbards along with Momonosuke 20 years into the future. She entrusted Hiyori to be raised by Kawamatsu while she rode away to Bakura town. At the city gate, she announced the prophecy given to her by Odin to the crowd just before she was shot down by an enemy sniper. Orochi took a bath and complained about it being too cold, despite the water being scalding hot. He expressed his frustration that Odin's retainers had not been caught. Meanwhile, Odin's remaining followers were devastated by the deaths. Ashura, who survived the encounter in the forest with injuries, reflected on the prophecy given by Toki just before her death. Kawamatsu attempted to cheer up a grieving Hiyori, but to no avail. Denjiro had a meltdown while hidden in a secluded wooden cabin. In the end, this transformed him into a cold and cynical person under the new name Kiyoshiro. He created a new Yakuza group and very begrudgingly pledged allegiance to Orochi to work undercover. At night, he he became the infamous thief Ushimitsu Kozo. Eventually, Hiyori ran away out of guilt for Kawamatsu. She showed up at the brothel owned by Kiyoshiro, who immediately recognized her. Kiyoshiro took her into the brothel and raised her, transforming her into an oiran by the name of Komurasaki. She was to carry fake blood at all times so she could fake her death when needed. 20 years nearly passed, and the fire festival was fast approaching. Paranoid of the 9 Red Scabbards' return, Orochi secures the country. He mentions a spy among them that was allied with Kaido the entire time. This unknown spy was a member of the Kurozumi family. He was originally part of a theater troupe, but his parents were killed in front of him. The spy met with Orochi and Higurashi, who tasked him with working undercover as one of Oden's retainers. The retainers who were transported to the future attempted to sail out to Zu, but their ship wrecked in stormy waters, and Raizo got separated from the group. Then, in Dressrosa, Momonosuke boarded on the wrong ship and also got separated. Kanjuro sacrificed himself there and allowed himself to get captured, allowing Kinemon to escape Dressrosa and pursue the ship to Punk Hazard. Unfortunately, he encountered Law, who cut him into pieces. He would be reassembled and reunited with the others thanks to the Straw Hat Pirates' efforts. They formed the Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance to take down Kaido and gathered an impressive army to battle in Onigashima. None of the people who promised to arrive at Tokaj port arrive, not even Luffy. The 9 Red Scabbards realize that since they took over Udon, Kaido's forces will be informed of their presence soon. So they have no choice but to set sail for Onigashima immediately, getting on a small rowboat to traverse the stormy waters. This marks the 3rd time that their plans have been leaked to Kaido's forces. Kinemon deduces that there must be a spy among Oden's retainers. Kaido hinted at a spy before, but Kinemon did not believe him until now. Kanjuro makes the shocking revelation that he was the traitor. Being hunted for being a member of the Kurozumi family his whole life, he decided to infiltrate Oden's retainers, sending confidential information to Orochi. Back in Zu, he told Jack that Raizo was located there, and he told Orochi about the new rendezvous point given by Yasui. Orochi sabotaged the mission by bombing all connecting bridges, as well as the Thousand Sunny. Now aware of the 9 Red Scabbards' whereabouts, Kaido's battleships are all lined up, ready to sink their rowboat. Kinemon cuts down Kanjuro, only to reveal that it is only a drawing of him. The real Kanjuro is still at the port. He restrains Shinobu with drawn snakes and captures Momonosuke. Since Kanjuro was not on the ship, the beast's pirates bombard it with cannonballs. The Straw Hats finally appear, having managed to repair the Thousand Sunny in time. The Thousand Sunny strikes the enemy ships with cannonballs. Law's submarine also appears from underwater, and so does Kid's ship from the opposite side. The 3 captains prepare to battle against the enemy forces. Although the arrival of the Straw Hat Pirates, Heart Pirates, and Kid Pirates was unexpected, the Beast Pirates are still confident as they fire their cannons. Usopp and Zoro repel the attack. Meanwhile, back at Tokaj port, Kanjuro is surprised to see the pirates being present there, having reported to Orochi about the changes of Kinemon's plan. Previously, 2 gifters bombed the Thousand Sunny on Orochi's orders. The Straw Hats, who were located in Amigasa village, heard the explosion at the coast. Luckily, the ship was built out of a durable wood and was unharmed by the explosion. However, the sails were burned and had to be repaired. The gifters then reveal how
Está na hora de deitar. Está na hora de deitar. Bye.